Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewiński, and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. Russian leader Vladimir Putin has finally reported on the successes of his economy. And as always, he did so with the expression of a man who sincerely believes that numbers alone can be used to power local communities across the country. According to our bunker-dwelling dictator, oil production this year will amount to 510 million tons, which is just 1% less than last year. He also proudly announced that gas supply in Russia is 75% full.
Транспортный сектор, где многие планы по отказу от двигателей, прежние планы по отказу от двигателей внутреннего сгорания реалистично сдвигаются, что называется, вправо, но пользуются машинами, которые на бензине ездят, и будут пользоваться, еще долго будут пользоваться. Россия, а потом, электром двигатели появляются. Ну да, правда. Но электричество надо откуда-то взять, она же не из розетки, это электричество появляется, его же надо произвести из чего-то. Из топочного мазута, из угля там, и так далее. Россия сохраняет позицию одного из ведущих производителей нефти, несмотря на использование против нас механизмов недобросовестной конкуренции. Мы обеспечиваем около 10% мировой добычи и ожидаем, что по итогам года в нашей стране будет добыто 510 миллионов тонн нефти. Это примерно на процент ниже, чем в прошлом году, но хочу обратить ваше внимание, уважаемые коллеги, это происходит в соответствии с договоренностями в рамках соглашения ОПЕК+, то есть это добровольное снижение.
Even if these figures are true, that is precisely where the main comedy actually lies. The president of a country that once supplied gas to half the world proudly declares, after a quarter of a century of his own rule, 3/4 of our country already has gas. Hooray! Russia has boasted of being an energy superpower for decades, you see. Gazprom sold the dream of a comfortable world of Russian gas from Berlin to Naples. But at home, literally half of the villagers still rely on wood-burning stoves for essential heating on a daily basis. It can be said that Russian gas perfectly illustrates Russian politics. Outside, meaning the export market, it's all glitz and glamour, while at home, most people remain cold and miserable. Putin did not forget about oil either. Production fell by only 1%, he said proudly, as if this was news of improvement rather than of the economy slowly sliding into a deep, dark sinkhole. The reality is that this 1% less means reduced foreign exchange earnings, more discounts for China, and even more holes in the budget. In Russian political math, everything is simple. If you have 75% of your gas storage full, that's already a success. If salaries are lower than in Poland, that is stability. If there is war, that's a special operation. If you have isolated the country from the world, that is sovereignty. Russia, which has been boasting about its gas pipelines for decades, still cannot supply the blue fuel to its own citizens. After 25 years in power, a quarter of the country still lives as if it is 1895, rather than, the 21st century. Billions of cubic meters of gas keep the privileged few happy, with ordinary Russians left to shiver while staring adoringly at their dictator's portrait, unless, of course, there is a refinery fire nearby to heat things up. Russian propagandist Vladimir Solovyov is the epitome of the salty vatnik, a man caught between endless frustration with the West and the equally endless admiration for whatever the Kremlin says and does. Yesterday, as usual, he logged onto X to take a look at the account of former Deputy Foreign Minister of Ukraine, Anton Gerashchenko. As he did so, he also noticed a comment by Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski. What followed was a temper tantrum strong enough to cause a disturbance in the force, as if millions of Russian delusions suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced.
У меня тайные поклонники есть. Радик Сикорский мне написал. Радик. Вот слушать нашу программу Антонины Геращенко и Радик Сикорский можете вывести? Я вам переслал. Значит, Радик пишет в запрещенной сети «Ха». Вообще прикольно, когда тебе отвечает «Мистер иностранных дел Польши». Я прям наслаждаюсь.
Мне форин-офис иногда из Англии пишет.
Да, нет, я прям наслаждаюсь. Притом как? Они, значит, смотрят, и, значит один
смотрят.
украинский нацист, значит, размещает пост. Ну, он объективно, ну что делать? Да. А это подхватывает не кто-нибудь, а польский министр иностранных дел. Solovyov was already in heaven, in his villa on Lake Como. Слушай, Радик, понимаешь, ты когда-то занимался журналистикой, но ничего не добился. Ну, так бывает, ты был ничтожеством. Стал государственным деятелем Польши и остался ничтожеством. Антонина Геращенко – конченая, жалкая жаба, и подонок, ничтожество, которое пытается цитировать нашу программу, кстати, запрещенную к просмотру как в твоей стране, Радик, так и на Украине, но вы жить без нас не можете. Я вам всего лишь процитировал знаменитую фразу нашего верховного главнокомандующего. Но когда ты, нацистская сволочь, Радик, радуешься тому, что у еврея отобрали собственность в просвещенной Италии, что может быть более традиционного? Когда бандеровец наслаждается с польским антисемитом, который мстит всему миру за то, что неудачно женат на еврейке. Это вообще классический сценарий.
Of course, he is not crying only because of politics. They say his heart still aches for that Italian villa that was confiscated after sanctions were imposed. A number of villas, actually. In reality, Solovyov's presence in the public sphere is nothing more than a museum exhibit of Soviet propaganda artificially sustained by injections from the Kremlin budget. According to sources, his show is financed by hundreds of millions of rubles. Civilian factories in Russia are switching to 4-day work weeks due to the crisis, but the propaganda show has to keep running at full speed, especially now. I guess, however, that Solovyov must be exploring some new career opportunities. I mean, that Hitler-style voice acting would almost be enough to land him a role in a Tarantino war movie. Except, spoiler alert, the Führer died early in that timeline. Speaking of which, it's also a massive stretch for a Russian propagandist to accuse others of anti-Semitism, especially Radosław Sikorski. You see, after attacking Ukraine, Russia has done some really ugly things, such as bombing the Babi Yar Holocaust Memorial and killing more than a few Holocaust survivors during its relentless shelling of Ukrainian cities. Also, Ukraine remains home to a vibrant Jewish community, which is routinely threatened by Russian aggression, while Putin himself has on a few occasions used anti-Semitic tropes when attacking President Zelensky verbally. Solovyov should probably put a mirror to his own country before launching all those accusations. So, that's another propaganda fake broken right there. I can't wait for another hysterical response from Solovyov. He's such a snowflake, really, that I half expect him to melt quicker than snow on a sunny summer day at Lake Como. And with this, we end this edition of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates. I'm Jonasz Rewiński. Bye for now.